So here we are with Climax Studios' second attempt at making a Silent Hill game, Silent Hill Shattered Memories for the Wii. It came out late 2009, early 2010 outside of North America, and for some odd reason it was also ported to the PS2 and the PSP, but those versions are considered vastly inferior. And I also don't have them. Shattered Memories wasn't always going to be how it was though. After finishing Silent Hill Origins, Climax Studios wanted to create another Silent Hill game on the PSP. However, higher-ups at Konami suggested that they make a spin-off title for the Wii. It would be a first-person shooter taking place in the Silent Hill universe that would take advantage of the Wii's motion control. Other franchises such as Dead Space and Resident Evil have also had first-person rail shooter spin-offs. It's possible that the success of the Resident Evil titles are what sparked the inspiration. The project was codenamed Bram's PD, but the project never saw Konami's approval and was soon abandoned. However, some of the elements of this title did carry on over to Shattered Memories, such as the mechanics regarding psychologically profiling the player via sessions with a psychologist. Continuing with the ideas from Bram's PD, they started what would become not a spin-off but a main entry in the series, still to be developed on the Wii. The game was originally titled Silent Hill Cold Heart, and it would feature a melee combat system similar to past games. In addition to that, an element of survival would also be implemented with a body temperature system. You would have to scour the world for food and clothing despite the harsh weather. The game being developed on Wii created high hopes for the franchise being introduced to a brand new demographic, though many of the game's ideas were then gradually scrapped in favor of making a game more focused on exploration. Perhaps it was because the Wii catered more to a casual audience, so they could have felt that making a hardcore survival game wouldn't really be the best idea. At first, Shattered Memories did star a cast of completely original characters, but as the plot was developed, it was then decided to not be a remake, but a reimagining of the first Silent Hill game. A brand new game with a brand new plot starring the classic cast of characters we already know and love. It kinda seems like Climax is a little bit too obsessed with continuing the legacy of the original game's story. I mean, they really like to stick way too close to the original game's plot. They did that with Silent Hill Origins, and that game kinda became stale as all hell. Konami actually marketed the game as a brand new hardcore horror Silent Hill experience, and Climax Studios was very upset with that. They wanted to create a more casual experience for fans of psychological horror, and the way Konami was advertising it simply wasn't accurate. A more casual Silent Hill? That sounds kinda weird, but this would be the first Silent Hill game to take focus entirely away from combat, completely in favor of exploration in the story. That does sound kinda weird, but at the same time, it does have my attention. So this is your second chance, Climax. Let's see if your ambitions pay off this time. Okay, I have to mention that I love this game's title screen. It's a VHS tape of Harry and his daughter Cheryl. Each time you advance a menu, part of the tape will play and then pause again. The visual design of this title menu hits the VCR aesthetic so well, and for that I applaud it. I love this. And of course, again, there's no separate puzzle difficulty. Well, there's no difficulty setting at all for that matter. Really, that's no shock by now, and I honestly wasn't even hoping for it at this point anyway. The game's intro features that infamous car crash scene Harry and his daughter plunge themselves into, followed by a therapy session with Dr. Kaufman. The game jumps between two timelines, the present, where you're visiting the shrink, and the past, told through flashbacks triggered by Kaufman's questions. These therapy sessions are actually pretty neat.
I want you to know this will be different.
Kaufman will have you take part in psychology tests, asking you questions. Oh yeah, man, you know it. How you perform during these sessions will impact your psychological profile.
There are 7 pictures of people on the table. Your job is to tell me who is dead and who is merely sleeping.
This profile is an invisible record of your personality gathered by the game through these tests.
All finished. Okay.
Depending on how this profile is manipulated, the plot, dialogue, and appearance of certain characters will change to match it. For example, Sybil can be kind with a laid-back appearance, or aggressive with a more professional appearance, or just sexualized depending on your psychological profile. It'll also affect the locations you visit. While looking for help, did Harry stop by the diner or did he stop by the bar? And even then, the locations themselves have a handful of variations. Was it a fairly regular-looking sports bar, or was it more so themed with romance and lingerie? That's really cool. I've never really heard of a game before that does that through mechanics regarding psychology. It's definitely not as in-depth or mind-bending enough to warrant that warning at the beginning, though. Seriously, guys, you really think your system's that good? Don't you guys think you're being a little bit, I don't know, pretentious with that one? So Kaufman explains that in order to make progress, we'd have to start from the very beginning, the car crash. We then flash back to Harry Mason waking up to find that his daughter, Cheryl, is missing.
Cheryl! Cheryl!
Now, with the Press X to Jason joke becoming so popular when Heavy Rain came out, I'm surprised there never was a Press A to Cheryl joke as well.
Cheryl? Cheryl? Sweetie?
In this game, Harry controls like he would in a typical third-person game. Though you aim the flashlight with the Wii Remote, which actually feels really fluent and responsive. You can zoom in the view with the B button, getting a better look at signs and posters and whatnot. The detail in this world is absolutely astounding for a Wii game, and it creates a genuinely immersive experience. There's never any pop-ups or dialogue boxes telling you what a sign or note said like in past games. In Shattered Memories, you literally just approach the sign and zoom in and read it like you would in real life. Harry will also sometimes comment on it. This is nothing new, as characters did this in past games, but now it's delivered simply with a spoken line of dialogue that doesn't pause the game with a line of text.
911. Phone's out.
The complete lack of a HUD or any on-screen messages make the gameplay very smooth flowing, and I really like that a lot. I'm still kind of astonished by the presentation. This is a Wii game, and it's running at a solid 60 FPS with highly detailed graphics and excellent looking character models. The game's voice acting is also pretty damn great, with a cast that consistently delivers their lines excellently.
For you, family is about physical affection and making your feelings known. You're giving me that look.
The character animation is also really good, but more importantly, it's consistently really good.
I'm looking for my daughter.
Remember in Homecoming where the game would sometimes have good animation and other times have really bad animation? It's not like that at all here. The animation and visuals of Shattered Memories are highly polished throughout the entire game. The music is great once again, being composed by Akira Yamaoka. It's really nice to see the series composer following the franchise still, despite the original development team being completely gone. The lighting effects do the job pretty well too. Being in total control of the flashlight, unlike in past games, this is pretty important, so it's good to see them get it right. The game does have its hiccups though. There seems to be a frame rate jitter every time you go through most of the doors, and this is very frequent, though I'd assume it's from the game loading each individual area, which I guess is how they managed the strong presentation on Wii, by having only small areas loaded one at a time. The frame rate also dips quite a bit during the chase scenes. It's definitely not enough to be annoying, but it's still worth pointing out. Sorry for drooling all over the game's presentation. I just kinda had really low expectations considering we're playing a Wii game here. That and the complete lack of quality control in the last two titles kinda really made me lower my guard. Shattered Memories controls very smoothly. It even has a quick turnaround button, hell yeah! One of my biggest gripes of Homecoming was the lack of a quick turnaround button, so it's awesome to see them add it in this game. You can also look back over your shoulder, getting you a quick view of what's directly behind you. This is mostly used during the chase sequences, and these parts I'm not super fond of. It goes like this. The game's split into 3 different sections. Your sessions with the Shrink, the segments in which you'll freely explore your environment looking for a way to advance, and then the Otherworld segments in which you'll be chased around by monsters. There's a handful of moments where suddenly the world will shift, and just like Homecoming, we get to see a real transition, and again, it's really damn rad. I love that it's so different too. The whole world freezes solid instead of becoming that traditional rusted factory-like hell we've always seen before. It's kinda weird to see a Silent Hill game with a cool color grade instead of a warm one, but again, it is a nice change. Here you'll be chased around by monsters. You can't fight them because there's no fighting in this game whatsoever. Your only option is to run. I mentioned last year in my Silent Hill 1 video that just because you're running from something does not mean it's scary. I even used Silent Hill Shattered Memories as an example of this, and I still strongly stand by that. Silent Hill Shattered Memories chase sequences just aren't scary. There isn't a sense of panic-induced decision-making or planning to get around and past these things you desperately don't want to get anywhere near. Instead, they're always behind you, and as long as you don't turn around, you'll pretty much be fine. During these segments, you can also knock things over to slow down the monsters. There's also areas in which you can hide until the coast is clear, which I never really found helpful since they just find you again once you start running to the exit anyway. There's also flares you can pick up, giving you a good 20 seconds of invulnerability. As long as this thing's lit, the monsters aren't going to come anywhere near you. The goal of these sections is simply to get to the end. But finding the end is sometimes really tricky. These areas are very maze-like and it's easy to get lost. Locations can also look very samey, making it hard to navigate. This is why I don't like these sections. I find them frustrating, running around in circles until I happen to get lucky and find the end. These bits are also bogged down by jank motion controls. When monsters catch up to you, they'll latch on, making you have to swing the Wiimote around to shake them off. I find that it's only responsive half the time, and it makes navigating these sections all the more clunky. It doesn't amount to anything nearly as frustrating that Homecoming had me pulling my hair out for, but I still really wish they found a way to make these segments a lot less aimless and convoluted. These sections are always completely separated from the exploration gameplay, and because of this, the game has absolutely no hope of being scary. I mean, how are you going to be afraid of exploring the darkness if you know for a fact that there is nothing in the darkness? There's no sense of anticipation because there's nothing to anticipate, and this is Shatter Memory's greatest flaw. This is even alleviated with the implementation of completely useless game mechanics, like having total control over the speed at which a door opens and being able to peek inside with a flashlight to make sure the coast is clear before you advance. What's the point of doing this if you know the coast will always be clear? So that's 3 Silent Hill games in a row that aren't scary. That's disappointing. We're talking about Silent Hill. But I guess not all is lost. There are other things to enjoy here. Shattered Memories may not be a great horror game, but I personally consider it to be more of a psychological thriller. The way the plot twists and turns, making you question just what the hell is going on, it does a fantastic job of keeping the player trying to understand what the hell the world of Silent Hill is trying to tell us. A lot of this is communicated through messages your phone will pick up, old conversations people had in the past being picked up by your cell phone. You learn about the struggles of teenagers in the world as they try to deal with things like harassment, sex, and stealing. Your phone gathers a lot of these memories, some in the shape of people literally frozen in place. Some of these phone calls come from Harry or his wife, and others seem completely unrelated. You'll also use the phone to solve a lot of the game's puzzles. Sometimes it involves listening to a message and using the info to solve a puzzle, or maybe you'll need to call a certain phone number in order to advance. A great example of this is an old conversation Harry had with his wife on the phone. In the background, you can hear Cheryl playing with a toy piano. If you type in the same notes you heard in the background of the phone call, you'll be able to advance. The puzzles get really damn clever in this game. Another one of my favorites involves trying to log into a computer, but it's password protected. You can click "I forgot my password," prompting personal questions to the computer's user. The answers to all of these questions can be found by exploring his office, his birthday, his favorite sport, etc., etc. It's really cool. A lot of the puzzles incorporate using the Wii Remote to open, push, pull, and pick up objects. While simple and brief, they're always a lot of fun to solve. Man, that new sound effect really makes you miss the old classic Silent Hill item getting jingle. You know, this one. This is the first and only Silent Hill game not to feature the classic sound effect. It almost seems like it shouldn't matter, but I can't help but to miss it. So while the horror and feeling of classic Silent Hill just isn't there anymore, the puzzle solving and exploration has never been better. I can easily say in that regard it definitely sets a new high for the franchise. Your cell phone has a handful of other functions as well. Using the camera, you can uncover silhouettes, digging up their memories by taking their picture. Doing so will reward you with a voice message, which always helps add to the town's backstory. You can also save the game and view the map from the cell phone, but of course the most prominent feature is using it to dial numbers. As you play through the game, you'll occasionally notice a phone number on a sign or billboard or something else of the like. There's a lot of little dialogue tracks you can listen to by calling these numbers, some of which are required to solve puzzles, and others are just bonus tracks that help enhance the game world's story.
Toluca Mall has ceased operations. Debtors and creditors of Toluca Mall Enterprises should contact the Hayes Bader Bank for details of the foreclosure and liquidation of the company.
And of course, what's the point of having a mechanic like this if you're not going to include some awesome Easter eggs too? If you dial the Konami help phone number, you get a pretty entertaining line of dialogue.
Thank you for calling Konami Customer Support. How may I assist you today? Hello? Hello? Our caller ID shows that you're calling from Silent Hill. I regret to inform you that you are beyond even our help.
The game is full of Easter eggs you can discover by exploring. Like, check this out, we got arcade cabinets of Gradius, Contra, and Russian Attack. I actually had that one on NES as a kid. I never could beat it. Across the game, you can also find mementos, a bunch of items Harry remembers from his past. They don't unlock anything like bonus costumes, which is kinda disappointing, but at least they reinforce the elements of Harry's backstory. This game's plot is really, really interesting. Harry seems to run into occurrences that just get weirder and weirder. For example, returning to his home to look for Cheryl just to find a family living in his house.
What are you people doing in my house? Cheryl!
Easy there, this isn't your house.
He doesn't live there after all? Did he suffer amnesia in the crash, or is reality just twisting itself into new shapes like Silent Hill is known to do? Soon into the game, you'll meet up with Sybil Bennett. She can look a variety of different ways depending on the status of your psychological profile, though my favorite of her designs is this one right here. It actually reminds me a lot of a certain policewoman from one of my favorite movies, oh don't ya know. Later on, you'll meet Michelle, a young girl who went to Midwich High School. After telling her about Cheryl, she explains that one of her classmates was also named Cheryl Mason. She even has a picture of her. But Cheryl is 7, isn't she? Again, the game really makes you question what the hell is going on. I mean, it could be a number of things. Harry simply could have lost a lot more memory than he thought in the crash, or maybe the town of Silent Hill is trying to tell him something, teach him some sort of lesson he doesn't quite fully understand yet. This game's plot is so well thought out, with every voice message and text message enhancing the game's backstory so much, and it all comes together extremely well with an awesome plot twist. And now I'm about to talk about said plot twist. If you haven't played the game and you don't want the story spoiled for you, I highly recommend you skip to this timestamp right here. Okay? Good? You okay with that? Alright, let's go. It turns out the entire game it wasn't Harry in Kaufman's office, but Cheryl, who is now 25 years old and trying to cope with the death of her father. All of the questions Kaufman asked were assumed at Harry. Let's start from the beginning, the car crash, questions about divorce and sex.
Now tell me which of those couples are still together.
You'd never consider it because the whole game you thought it was Harry in the chair, but the questions also make sense being asked to Cheryl. She too was in that car crash, but only she escaped alive. Harry died in that car crash. The Harry we've been playing as the entire time is but a figment of her imagination, a physical manifestation of her memories. Memories she just can't let go of and accept. This time, the town of Silent Hill did something very different. It didn't project the characters' emotions in the shape of monsters like it did with James and Pyramid Head, but instead, the protagonist we've been playing as the entire time. The people and symbolism actually properly represent the character this time too. That means no sexy nurses, and better yet, no Pyramid Head or useless Pyramid Head equivalent. The only things you see and hear all relate properly to Cheryl and enhance her backstory, making her a stronger character. Every phone call, every text message, all of these memories shattered apart and scattered throughout the town, they all relate back to Cheryl. The stories of a young girl being harassed in school or having an affair with her teacher or being arrested for stealing. It was all about Cheryl the entire time. The mementos, all of the items you find scattered throughout the game, they weren't related to Harry, but instead Cheryl. This is made clear in a revelation at the very end when you discover the very last one. A locket in loving memory of her dead father, Harry Mason. It's one of those games where when you replay it knowing the plot twist, the whole plot makes so much more sense. I had the same feeling with Metal Gear Solid 3, playing the game again knowing that Ocelot was Adam. It creates such a different kind of replay value. The game also has multiple endings as usual, though this time they're impacted by your psychological profile. There's actually 2 instances of the ending that are impacted. Firstly, what Cheryl says to Harry. Does she accept that he's gone? Does she break down? It depends on how you played the game. Then Then, after the credits, you'll view a short home movie showing what Harry was really like. Was he really a good father? Was he a sleazy husband? Again, it completely differs. These two scenes can occur in any combination. None is actually tied to the other. It's really cool to see that the ending is a combination of two scenes that are different depending on your actions, and they don't actually have to correlate with one another. And what's a Silent Hill game without the UFO ending? On a second playthrough, this can be achieved by using a cell phone camera to take photographs of 13 UFOs. It's an interesting and fresh twist on how to obtain it.
Wrong day again?
See you tomorrow, James.
After two not-so-great games, Shattered Memories is a pleasant surprise, especially after the studio behind it already once failed to deliver. It's definitely not without its problems, though. I really don't like the chase segments, and the horror is really lacking. But the rest of the game is just so well made. It's got excellent puzzles, a fantastic presentation, and an amazing and well-thought-out storyline. It may completely fail as a survival horror game, but it makes for an excellent and amazing immersive psychological experience. I gotta give Shattered Memories a thumbs up. After Shattered Memories, I really have faith that it is possible to still make a good Silent Hill game. So what's next on the list here? Silent Hill Downpour. I often hear people tell me this is the worst Silent Hill game to come out after Team Silent disbanded. How bad could it really be? We'll find out next week, I guess. Hope you guys stick around next week for the Silent Hill Marathon, because we're going to be tackling Silent Hill Downpour for the PS3 and Xbox 360. Hope to see you guys then. So 3 games in a row and 3 games that aren't scary.